to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And can I get a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as it is printed?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Fishman, second by Mrs. Nickerson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. All right, we have nothing, no blue cards, so we'll dispense with the community open forum and move into item D. I'll make a motion to accept item D in its entirety. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fishman. Any discussion on D? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, can I get a motion for item E, the consent agenda? Motion
Second.
by Mrs. Wood, second by Mrs. Fishman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And for whoever donated, that's an anonymous donation of some masks and other cleaning supplies. We appreciate that. Moving to special presentations to the board, I'll turn it over to Mr. Polabufo to make some introductions.
All right, well, as you can all see, we are delighted with the outcome of this state-of-the-art auditorium here at Baltimore High School. Well, if you all look around, we are delighted at this amazing state-of-the-art Paul V. Moore auditorium. Could not have gotten it done without King Architects and Turner Construction, our construction managers. We have Kurt Narberg, we have Pat Griffin here today to be able to give us an update on where we are right now with our capital project. So without further ado, I now turn the floor over to these gentlemen. I would also like to say, while they're coming up, we would absolutely not be where we're at without our Director of Facilities, Paul Brissett. I have worked in many school districts, and I have never worked with somebody with the work ethic and the knowledge that Paul Brissett brings to the table. So not only did he have to deal with COVID and separating all the tables and chairs and the whole 9 yards, but during my entire time at Central Square, it feels like we've always been doing this capital project. And Paul's emails that constantly go out to the principals and to all staff, updating everybody, it is amazing work, Paul, and I want to be able to recognize you as well. Awesome job.
I think I did that right. 11. Okay, I'm Pat Griffin. We've met before in the past. Nice to be here tonight, and I'll walk through the original project update right now, and then I'll turn it over to Kurt to finish up for tonight. Where am I pointing this to? Oh, there we go. So, under phase 2, which Tom talked about, the auditorium here renovation, that's kind of finished up, work's completed. We're moving through the final punch list items and closeout paperwork for Marine to get this submitted to SED. So phase 2 is kind of coming to a close, okay? So under our current security project, high school area 1 has been turned over. Middle school area 1, new main office turned over. Brewerton Elementary main office turned over. Corridor infills are complete. Site work complete. AA Cole Elementary main office is turned over, and site work is complete there as well. I will drop back to the areas as referred to, area 1s and offices turned over. When this project was let, there was lead time, we went late, and your administration had been very, very gracious and moved out of their homes to allow this to happen, and without that cooperation, we would have been in much bigger trouble. And things pushed out, but I do want to recognize everybody's patience in this, and I think we've gotten a much better job being able to do that during the course of the year. So with everything you've dealt with this year, please convey our thanks to your administrators that they've done a great job helping us make a success out of these office renovations. So high school area 2 punch list, area 3 renovations, there's work to complete. And canopy site work out front and exterior door replacements around the building. We're moving into that phase of work to happen between now and before before school lets out, we're gonna coordinate with all areas we can work in the building and get that work implemented before school starts. We wanna get a jump on the summer. Middle school, area 2 renovation, it's the old office, we've started demo, but there's some additional spaces there, we're gonna wait till summer. The nurse's office needs some additional space, so we did take all that over right now. Brewerton Elementary, interior and exterior door replacements will probably happen over the summer. We have the canopy work there to finish, and there's some doorways that need some additional attention with an abatement contractor, so we gotta wait till the school's out to make that happen. AA Cole, again, the main office punch list is working, corridor infills were done, which were basically the glass partitions looking into the classrooms. We kind of eliminated those in that building. Exterior door replacements will come, and windows are in there. I don't know if we talked about that in the first slide. And we're going around and redoing the sills here shortly. We've made some changes for that, and we're getting new shades that will be forthcoming. But the window tinting, I think, has been a positive with everybody. It seems like the building, even on the main office sunny days with no shades, it's pretty nice, I think, for the staff. So it was a good deal. Miller Hawk main office renovation is just about ready to get turned over. We were putting floor in, and we had some adjustments there with the HVAC system where we had some design changes we had to work out because part of the system really wasn't tied in the way we thought. So before we could do that, the engineers are working on a resolution to that. So we made some changes there, and that's been very helpful. Interior door hardware replacement is happening right now, and we have exterior door replacements that will happen as well. And we replace the glass in the major sections, like in the courtyard. We pop all that glass out, put the new insulated glass, and I think if you walk through there on a hot day, the corridors feel a little bit cooler. You know, not as much sun beating in on you. Hastings Mallory, main office renovation is going to take place this summer, and that'll be a big part of that. Windows arrived today at Hastings Mallory, and we're going to start the install process, second shift and day shift, coordinated through Paul, and we're going to start that this week. CSI main office renovations are yet to happen. What we kind of left that as fill-in work because the building's really not that occupied right now. We have it demoed, but just where we need people, we go there first, and that'll be buttoned up here shortly. Exterior door replacement there as well, and the canopy work will finish now that the weather is broken. So, with that, I am going to turn over to Kirk to talk about capital project phase 2 of the security project with some additional scope items that we've discussed amongst the team.
Hello, everyone. So the great thing about where we are with all of these projects collectively is that we're under budget and we have some flexibility with some allowance monies and things that haven't been spent, which is a great position to be in. So what we've been evaluating, are there any items that were priority items or popped up in the last year or two that we could maybe tackle with some of those funds to close the project out. So these are all additional items that were never part of the original scope of work. And I'll talk about the two specific ones in the bottom in just a second. But from the money that we have available in phase 2, we're evaluating doing some HVAC control work. We're going to do some gym floor protection work, and then we've got the divider partition replacement at Brewerton, and then the high school wall pads replacement. The chimney liner piece, which has a wonderful spelling on it, so linear. We have the high school chimney liner, which is something that is urgent need of replacement. It's a specialty item. So we've requested from SED, this is more of an urgent need, a kind of special exemption from having to go through the normal bidding process for a change order of $120,000 because it is a specialty item and there's only a few contractors that can provide that. We are going to be working and negotiating a price for that work, for that specialty item, and we're waiting to hear back from SED on that, so more to come. The security project has a series of items also that include HVAC controls that we're working on final pricing for, and then a couple other items. The big item that I want to address tonight, and that you have a resolution for, is the coal fuel tank replacement. I've learned more about fuel tanks in the last 3 months than I've ever wanted to know, but this has been a team effort and something that came out of a request basically from Paul, based on the fact that your insurance company was considering no longer being able to insure the tank at AA Coal. It's been creating problems for a while now. It's got a lot of contamination and deterioration internal to the tank that's clogging up the lines, fuel lines and things. So it is definitely a tank that needs to be replaced. We are actually at the urgent point of this process with getting this tank replaced, and so when we identified it back at the end of last year, we immediately started to look at how do we get this done, and the first thing we looked at was where do we have money available that potentially we can get this done and not necessarily declare an emergency project, which is something that I'm not even sure we get through SED. So we submitted this as a project to SED, got their approval as basically a post-bid addendum to the security project because it fell in line with the wording of the original bond referendum. So it gave us the leeway to be able to do that because we had site work and other amenities as part of that bond referendum. The interesting thing that's going on in the materials world in construction is that we have a lot of backlog in a lot of different fronts of materials, and one of those materials is resin for fiberglass. To do this tank replacement correctly, it needs to be a double-wall fiberglass tank, so we're not monkeying around with any steel components. You'll get a 30-year warranty out of it, and it'll be, the top-of-the-line tank that we can get on the market. And what we found out very quickly when we started to explore this is that the backlog for fiberglass double-wall tanks are anywhere from 32 weeks to 40 weeks in duration. So our goal was to get this tank replaced before the next heating season in September. So we were in dire need of some different methods to get this thing done. So I jumped in and did some research with some new strategies that New York State just have allowed in the last 2 years, one being a co-op program. So typically with many of these types of projects, we have to go out to public bid. The co-op program in New York allows, it's basically a pre-bid set of contractors who have actually bid to perform certain types of work through New York State. And some other time when we have a lot more time to chat, I can fill you in on it. But perfectly legal and available for school districts to use for the first time in the history of New York State SED. So we'll probably be looking at these strategies a little bit more in the future for components like this, which are kind of an immediate and urgent need. So the short of this conversation is that by working directly with these co-op contractors, we were able to tap into essentially a tank pipeline and get in front of the line and get a tank here if we went this route by August, and then have it installed by the end of the month so that we meet the heating season problem. So it all kind of came together, and so we're in front of you today to tell you that we've ordered the tank to get in line, and now we need you to act on basically authorizing the expenditure of the $349,000. It's listed in the resolution as a not to exceed. We've got allowance money in this total number, so it's roughly $331,000 is the amount that was actually bid through this co-op program, and then we have $18,000 in allowance to cover in case we come across contaminated soils, which we never know what we're going to find when we're dealing with fuel tanks. There's no indication that there's been leakage, but we never know. So, that's where we're at right now. It's our best attempt at trying to protect everybody. And our budget going into this whole process was anywhere between 330, 350,000, so we're right on exactly where we thought we should be. And so we're really comfortable with, recommending to the board that you move forward with resolving this and allowing us to enter into a change order and contract with the co-op contractors. That's where we're at.
So, any questions while we have Kirk here, particularly about the change order that we're gonna vote on in a little bit? And I talked to Maureen and Tom earlier, so, there's no budgetary impact, it's really just reallocating money and savings and everything else, so. I don't have any questions, so.
Well, to me, it's a perfect example of why you guys had to build that extra money in to the projects for that. And I want to go on record to say, in 2016, when we put the RFP out for architectural firms, and you guys delivered an amazing presentation, and because of the details that you just provided right there, speaking on behalf of the board and the entire district, we are so glad that we went with you guys in 2016, because not only do you come in and give presentations like this, but whenever I call you, and I'm sure I bother you a lot with capital projects between you and Pat, and Paul's nodding his head, yeah, that I do probably do that. You guys have always been wonderful breaking it down in layman's terms for me, and I'm extremely appreciative for you guys are 100% professional throughout this process. Thank you.
Well, it's a great team, and we enjoy the partnership, so we're always happy to have successful projects and to keep doing great things together, so.
And I'll continue the kudos, because if you talk to, or even read articles about other projects in other parts of the state or the country, like, we're taking for granted that this is still happening and, being finished, and it's not always the case. It's a lot of not very happy stories out there. This is a question, it could be for Kirk or anyone here, but when did we do the 5-year building condition survey last?
That would have been 2015. And then I think last year was the start of the new program with New York State, where they are staggering the 5 years. So they basically split all the districts up in the state into fifths. And so we're going to be doing building condition surveys every year for some districts from now into the future, but it'll always be on a 5-year cycle.
And we haven't got our slot, right?
2024.
2024, yeah, it's in a couple of years. But, the building condition survey it's a process that we go through. We used a lot of the information from the 2015 BCS to inform the capital planning. We are more than aware of all of the conditions of the buildings due to all the work that we've been doing in the project. So this team here understands completely the kind of priorities and infrastructure items that we need to be constantly focused on for now and for future work. And so when we get to the BCS in 2024, that's going to be more of a formality to update more of what's been done and those things that may continue to be on that list. So it's not going to be as onerous of a process as it's been in the past.
And based on that, would you anticipate, and of course it's up to the board of the district, but would you anticipate that we are able to wait until the results of that 2024 BCS for the next capital project, or should boards, I would assume, be planning something before then? Because we've gone a long time without doing stuff. So.
Right. I think it goes back to the BCS is not going to tell us anything that we don't already know. And so, and we're going to start this discussion pretty soon with kind of the planning committee to kind of formulate what the next steps might be. It's going to be really up to the board to decide how best to move forward, but there's no surprises. We know what is still on the list that we identified 3 or 4 years ago. Those haven't changed. In fact, we probably added a few things to that list, and that list is more important than the BCS because that's really the capital planning spreadsheet that we use as a tool to kind of plan scope.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? All right. Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome. Good to see everyone.
And Paul, thanks again.
that from me? Yeah. Can you hear it? No, there's a big feedback or something. All right. Oh, there it is. Okay. So 2.5 weeks ago, the New York State did adopt the budget. It was only about a week late. And it included many, many different things. I'll start with saying that the proposals that were in the initial one to cap expense-based aids and consolidate all the aids into one local funding adjustment piece did not pass, which that was huge, because they were going to stop all the formulas running on the expense-based aids. They did increase foundation aid, 1.4 million. And there's language in there about fully funding the foundation aid formula, which I'll talk about that at the end. And this legislation also is going to allow transportation aid essentially to run as normal, because that was a big piece with what happened last year. They weren't going to let transportation expenses continue forward and be aided the way they normally are. So that was taken off the board. So, these are the published numbers that came in our document. So on the left-hand side is the 2021 numbers that are sitting in the formulas now. And on the right-hand side is the estimated aid package for next year. The foundation aid is the big piece on top. For our district, it went up 3%, which is just a little under $1 million. The rest of the numbers are expense-driven aids and people-driven aids, and that package changes a little over $500,000. And then on the bottom of the package, they took back the pandemic adjustment out of the left-hand side of the formula, which is interesting because I don't know if you remember, that was a take-back of our foundation aid in this year. So by putting it there, it looks like another increase of $1 million when you look at the bottom line. But the reality of that is that's not exactly a dollar for dollar look at it. Also included in the package are stimulus money. And there was two numbers on there. So essentially, we're calling it stimulus number 2 and stimulus number 3. So the 3.3 million number, the CRRSA Act, is the number that was in the original runs that we had in January. It was in and then taken out as an adjustment. And then the second number, which we're calling stimulus number 3, which is called the American Rescue Plan, which is what you're hearing about a lot in the news, is a little over 8.6 million. These numbers are going to be interesting. They're huge numbers. It's awesome, but nobody really knows yet how exactly this is going to work. So I've taken a couple of different quotes that they're talking about. Both stimulus number 2 and 3 are going to be grants. They are not going to run through our general fund budget, which is actually good, even though you've heard me say that grants are hard, as far as they're a lot of work. They are, but if you were to take those $3.3 million or the $8.6 million and add that into our general fund budget, those would be huge budget increases that we wouldn't be able to maintain in the future. So this was actually good legislation to have the OSC come out and recognize that these need to go through the special aid fund. What does this mean for our budget as we adopted it? And actually, it's basically a no change. We don't want to increase our budget because we already know that it's an increase of 5.7%, which is large. So if you look through the first column, these are the numbers that we had in our runs in our adopted budget that we used when we adopted. And then on the right-hand side are the new numbers. Obviously, the expense-based aids have changed a little bit, and the building aid number that we have in our budget and then put in there next to the state budget, the new state number, is much bigger than the number that are in the runs, because we are going to get increased building aid that will match the debt service aid. Once these phase 2 projects that that, the guys were just talking about are filed, that aid is gonna generate in next year's budget package. And so when you put those two things together, it does show us going forward, I keep pushing the wrong button here. It gives us a no-change budget, basically. What we're doing is we take the 50 million that we originally had against the 51.9, and then that CRRSA, which is stimulus number 2, was going in and then being taken out as the local adjustment, is no longer in the budget at all. So that will be in a grant. And then the property taxes, we are saying no change, no increase in the levy. And what we'll do is not have to apply as much fund balance. So our new fund balance application will go down about the 1.5 million, which are the increases on the foundation aid, to keep us at the same proposed budget increase, just under the 86 million. Does that make sense to everybody?
So Maureen, just to clarify, we talked many times before, the federal and the state money that was coming for stimulus was just gonna be taken out, so it was a wash. That's not the case anymore, this is actually going to be excess money provided.
Yep, that's what they're saying. So if you look at that, the two first numbers, it was in there as the stimulus and then it was gonna be adjusted out. Now they're totally taking those numbers off this table. They're not gonna be in our general fund at all, and the money is gonna come as a grant, and it's gonna be a supplemental money, not supplanted money. So that becomes the big next piece. So our budget package remains the same, but now we have these two new funds. So it's not like, they're not gonna be like the CARES Act fund, which is the one that we have in this year's budget, which is in the general fund budget. These, they're calling them, I brought it with me because I never know how to say it. It's the Federal Coronavirus Response Relief Supplement, and then it's the American Rescue Plan. Those are the two acronyms that you see down there. And those are going to come to us through grants. So these are some big numbers. I tried to put it here in a way that you can kind of see it all at once. So stimulus number 1 is just under $1 million. It's currently in our budget now, and it's accounted for in our general fund. And I finally did get that grant to be accepted, and that money is starting to flow to us. The stimulus number 2 number on our run right now is the 3.37 million. That can be accounted for in the special aid fund, essentially a grant, and it has a 2-year time frame, give or take. They're saying that these all started on March 13th of 20. Well, obviously that was a year ago now. So we're saying forward, we've got the 21-22 year and the 22-23 year time frame to spend those. And then the American Rescue Plan, which is the third stimulus package, is just over $8.6 million. And right now they're talking about that potentially having another window added on for another year. So we might be looking at 4 years to be able to spend that money. So there's a lot of talk out there. Not a lot of known quantities yet, so they're giving us some possible fund uses that include, it's all over the board. Obviously PPE and anything that has to do with meeting the needs of the pandemic, the improving the ventilation. If we need to obtain additional space, we can rent space, avoid layoffs, hire additional staff, meet the emotional, mental needs, all of the items that we all need, all districts need. And then they go on to say, but you need to be careful to spend on non-reoccurring items because we must be able to support anything new after these grants are gone. So we're getting a mixed message right now. There is supposed to be a webinar next week with some more details, and there's some new runs that are gonna come out. So these numbers are not actually firm. But to put it I guess I would say, no matter how you cut it, it's a lot of money, and it is going to be very helpful. We just need to get the direction on how to go about getting it, what we're allowed to spend it on, and then we'll be moving forward as a team. Tom will have to do Zoom meetings with community staff, stakeholders. We'll do the same thing that we've been doing with the opening and reopening plans. And hopefully over the summer, we'll have a better idea of what we can use it on and what we personally at Central Square want to do with it.
Can you go back just one slide?
Mm-hmm. I think I can. So the one thing that they're making a big deal of is the closing the learning gaps from what's been happening this year and school last year. So the summer school, the extended day, the enrichment programs, the after-school programs, we know are going to be a big part of what they want the money spent on. And Aaron and Connie have already started working on that piece, even though we don't really have our arms around it, because that's got to be happening this summer.
Right, and I think, you know, as a parent, talks to other parents in the district, there's certainly a lot of students that have fallen behind, which obviously that money would be perfect to address that, but there's also students who have kind of just hit plateaued rather than being on the upward trajectory that they would have been had this not occurred. So I hopefully we'll be looking at, you know, not only remedial, but like it says, enrichment programs and everything for all students.
Yeah, it's the total closing the learning gap, whether it's a loss or an even or should have gone forward further. Oh, did you want to say something, Andy, on that other?
No,
Oh, okay.
just didn't have time to read it all, that's all.
Oh, sorry. No, so we're gonna have a lot of work to do. As soon as the budget is adopted and passed, we'll have to get into this. And hopefully by then, that's what, 4 weeks away? There will be some really good guidance on how we're supposed to go about this. I do want to talk quickly about foundation aid because that's always a big ticket item and that's a big number in everybody's state aid package. These I took from my Association of Business Officials presentation last week that a webinar that I attended. Because I think when you hear foundation aid and you hear that it's going to be fully funded and over the next 2 or 3 years you're thinking big money. And I want to make sure that we understand that for Central Square and for most districts at this point that's not really the case. There are 4 different ways that foundation is going to potentially be phased in over the next couple of years. And the minimum increase is where Central Square is. So basically, the minimum increase is either 2%, or if you have a sparsity factor that's above 0, it's 3%. And as you saw on the first set of runs there, our foundation aid went up 3%. We have a sparsity factor of 0.01. These other ways of foundation aid phases are not going to be applicable to Central Square. And if you look at the state as a whole, the 675 districts, most districts are where we are. It's going to be a straight 3% moving forward. So you'll hear about when you go to your conferences and the different things, you know, the School Boards Association, there are going to be districts out there that fully funded foundation aid means some very big increases. But that's not the case for the bulk of the districts. And if you were to look at our foundation aid running, our current year aid is already fully phased in. It's a number that's bigger than what our foundation aid is. And a lot of that has to do, and for a lot of districts, the 211 districts, is because pupil count has declined so much over the last 10 years. So I just want to make sure everybody understands the whole foundation aid piece, because you're going to hear a lot about that, I think, in the next couple of years too. And it's not as significant for most districts as people want it to be, or think it should be, because I think it's almost like we've been trained to want foundation aid to be fully funded. Any questions?
I just want to quickly echo the big factors that we're going to be looking at is, you just did a great job mentioning, the achievement gap, the enrichment opportunities, but also the mental health piece. So we understand the mental health piece is huge in every district right now. A year and a half school-wise for students that have just struggled with social and emotional issues. So those are all the things that our cabinet have been looking at. So we're excited to be able to have the money to be able to do those things. Great job, Mike.
Any other questions? All right, so we move into item G, reports. There's no unfinished business. Mrs. Fishman, anything to bring up? All right, I'll mention a couple quick things. Number one, the Central New York School Board Association is holding their annual dinner this year. It's at the Lodge at Welch Allen. It's May 26th at 5:30 p.m. I'll ask Pearl if you can just send a note to the entire board and send some reminders out, but we'll seek to have anyone that's interested in going RSVP to Pearl by May 10th, and that'll allow us time to make the reservation for that. There is a virtual option. I do plan on attending that in person, but there is a virtual option if you want to just hear the speaker that night. The second thing is the Central New York School Board Association is hosting a roundtable. It's actually this Thursday. That is virtual from 6 to 7:30. Doug Eady, who is a really well-known national speaker, is going to be speaking, and he has a really great look on board superintendent relationships and kind of that, how they work. So if you're able to attend that, that would be great. And then I'll just echo, I can't remember what Tom mentioned at the beginning or if it was just before the meeting started, but we are canceling the May 3rd scheduled meeting and only holding May 10th. So it's really important that we have enough on May 10th because it becomes, there's a lot going on that night, which is also the meet candidate night, right? Which will follow the meeting. And that's all I have. How about our student board rep? Anything you want to bring up? All right, no problem. Open it up to the rest of you, all three of you. Chance, congratulations. Our newest future board member is Warren, what's the name? Emery Elise Nickerson. So, congratulations. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Paul.
Okay, superintendent report. Huge congratulations to Cole Mulhauser, who was one of a pair of Section 3's top wrestlers claiming second place at the NHSCA High School Nationals over the weekend at Virginia Beach. Cole, a junior at Baltimore High School, finished second in the 182-pound division. He was also the Toyota High School Athlete of the Week. I've had so many people come up to me in the last 3 months that know me as the superintendent here, that know wrestling, and they just wanted me to say just how incredibly special Cole is. And somebody like this just comes around once in a blue moon for a school when it comes to wrestling. So he's already been accepted to a Division I wrestling program. I cannot remember. I know it's an Ivy League school. It's Princeton. Yeah, it's Princeton. He's been accepted already. Last year he was accepted. So not only does he excel in wrestling, he excels in the classroom, which is huge. Congratulations to Evelyn Dolce, who won 2 awards in the National Art Competition. Jostens Photo Contest. This is wonderful news, and we are so proud of our accomplishments. Congratulations to the girls varsity basketball for making the Scholar Athlete team this season. It seems like the varsity girls basketball team are always being recognized for their academics, which is fantastic. Congratulations to the Central Square varsity winter guard. Out of 33 open class guards at the WGI finals from 17 states, only 2 winter guards scored better than Central Square. Central Square varsity received an expert ranking, and the highest was master. Congratulations to the students. Congratulations to Mr. Graziano and the director, and to the staff and for the whole guard, and obviously all the parents that play a key role volunteering and behind the scenes. This was an awesome accomplishment for the students who have worked so hard and have put such an amazing effort into every challenging season, into a very challenging season with COVID. I was fortunate enough, I had Mr. Graziano come into my office last week, and he showed me the 6 minutes performance, and it was remarkable, and we just thought it would be a great idea for them to celebrate those amazing students at the June 7 board meeting. Everybody will be able to watch their performance, so we're really excited for that. They did an amazing job given all the parameters that we had to follow during COVID. Also, Skills USA 2021 State Conference for Web Design, first place, Xander Hubner of Fulton and Julian Guzman, Central Square, are heading to the Nationals. That is another huge accomplishment. Also showing the many pathways that we have here at Central Square. First aid and CPR, third place went to Henry Landers from Central Square. Congratulations, and that ends my superintendent report.
All right, with that, we'll move into items for discussion and action. We're going to take these individually, so I'm going to make a motion for item H1, the approval of the Oswego County BOCES administrative budget, which is a budget in the amount of $8,037,438. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fishman. And this one has to be a roll call vote. Any discussion on it? All right, Mr. Martin is a yes. Mrs. Fishman is a yes. Mr. Hoyt? Yes. Is a yes. Mr. Loy and Mr. McCarthy are absent. Mrs. Nickerson? Is a yes. Mr. Patch and Mrs. Sunday are absent. And Mrs. Wood? Yes. Is a yes. Motion passes. Good, Pearl? Okay. All right, can I get a motion for item H2, the approval of the Oswego County BOCES Board candidate election? There's a slate of 3. Mrs. Donna Blake, Mrs. Donna Blake, 3-year term for Hannibal Central Schools. Mr. David Cordone, a 3-year term for Fulton, and Mr. Ted Williams, 3-year term for Pulaski Academy and Central Schools. So with that, can someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mrs. Fishman, second by Mrs. Nickerson. Any discussion? All right, we'll take them individually. All those in favor, and you can vote for all 3. All 3 are, in theory, going to be on board. So everyone in favor of Mrs. Blake? Thank you. Mr. Cordone? And Mr. Williams? Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve item H3, the approval of the first reading of district policies. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fishman. Any discussion? All those in favor? And can I get a motion for the approval of the resolution to issue the change order to 2021 fuel oil tank replacement project at AA Cole? Mrs. Nickerson, I'll make the second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Mrs. Nickerson. Me. It's all right, bro. 6 years, I think it's the first time you've ever asked for clarification, so you're allowed. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? Second by Mrs. Fishman. Any discussion? So with that, the next meeting is May 10th at 6 p.m.
That's correct.
6 p.m. on the 10th. This won't be here, let's say. Any other discussion on adjourning the meeting? If not, all those in favor? Have a great